As we continue this journey talking about brands and what a brand should be and how it should represent itself, next we want to talk about purpose. We obviously identified this back when we talked about you creating mission statements and core values and different things for your company during the examination phase. But now that we have that logo and that mark, we're going to start putting it out there into the world. And we have to think about something very important when we create a logo and a mark, and it's this, is that a brand is the promise you are making to your customer. It's the promise you're making to them. It's you saying, here's what we stand for, and here's what we believe in, and here's the representation we've chosen to let you know what we stand for and what we believe in. And it's so important that when we put our brand out into the world, that we protect it. We work with a lot of companies, and whether it be somebody who is a partner with a major corporation or a partner with a major brand, but often when you work with high-end brands, they will send you a book, and that book is their brand guidelines. And they will tell you in very specific details how you can and cannot use their logo. They will tell you it cannot be used on this background, it cannot be used in this form, in this format. Several years ago, I was working with a company we were using, they were an official partner with the NFL. And the NFL had very specific guidelines on how that logo could and could not be used. If you go online sometime or if you look up resources, and there's a wonderful resource on the UPS logo showing you how you can and cannot use it. It's so important that we protect those brands because what we're going to invest in them. As we go down this process, we're going to talk about all the money that we're going to spend in advertising and marketing and distribution and getting our message out to the world. And if we're going to do that, understand that every dollar we put into that is reinforcing the brand that we've created. And if that be the case, then we need to protect that brand and we need to know what the purpose of it is. You think about companies that are not-for-profits and that create logos and marks that stand for very important purposes and things that are valuable. And yet you think about if those companies do not follow their purpose, often those brands become signs of difficulty, or they become signs of something that is not very, very good. You think about companies that have created marks and logos, and they create these promises to people. And every time we put our brand out there and we keep the promise, we grow the brand. And every time we put our mark out there and we break the promise, we ruin the brand. When we put our mark out there and we say, here is what we stand for and here's what we believe in, if we do not fulfill the promise to that, then we are discrediting the brand that we've created. You think about companies that have created marks over time. I grew up in a time and period where everybody had yellow bracelets on, which was the Livestrong brand. And yet with some different difficulties within that charity and things that they went through, that mark carried on a different connotation because they made a promise, but they didn't keep the promise, and it hurt the brand. You think of companies like Enron, where at one time they were thought very highly of and recognized for the things that they were doing, and yet obviously if you grew up during that time of period with all of the different difficulties they went through, that brand now carries a completely different connotation to it. And yet we think of brands currently today that make promises and commitments to their customers and they keep them. There is a cult following of people who go to Costco. There are people who love going to Costco because they feel that when they go there, the promise that is given to them of what they're expecting is returned, is reciprocated. You think of folks who love Chick-fil-A, I'm one of them, who love that company and love what they stand for and love what the food and they love the experience and everything about them. And yet so often if you go to a restaurant or you go to a store who has given you that kind of a promise and that kind of commitment and your deep-seated enjoyment of it, and they don't fulfill that promise, how much more difficult it is. What we're trying to create in a brand, and the reason why your purpose is so important, is because we want people to have a visceral reaction towards our company. We want them to have a good reaction towards us. We want them to be loyal followers. But if we don't tell them what the purpose is and reinforce that purpose and fulfill the promise, then we're going to have a hard time building a brand. A simple thought and something that we need to really, really consider before we start putting pen to paper or mouse to computer screen to create something is, what is your purpose? What do you want your mark to exude? How do you want people to feel when they interact with your brand?